the Latin name for love, charity. Caritas is an outreach in the Austin community. To learn more about this, stay with us in Austin Faith Dialogue.
This is Austin Faith Dialogue, a public affairs program discussing the important crossroad of religion in life, produced by Austin Metropolitan Ministries in cooperation with KTVC TV. Austin Faith Dialogue highlights the interaction of the religious community with the social and cultural issues throughout our area. Now, today's edition of Austin Faith Dialogue.
Hello, I'm Richard Thompson of Austin Metropolitan Ministries, welcoming you to this edition of Austin Faith Dialogue. Today, our focus is upon a social service that's been reaching out into the Austin community for 30 years, Caritas. And we are delighted to have the director of that organization, Eileen Oldag.
Yes.
Who can tell us more about the history and the work of that organization today. And we're grateful for you to come to Kim Mueller as one who has received services and help from Caritas. And Eileen, folks around town have, I'm sure, heard of Caritas, maybe know a good bit about it, maybe they know nothing about it. So let's just assume the latter, that for the first time, you were to say to someone, well, what's it about, what's it doing, why is it here? What would you say?
Well, first I'd say that chances are someone could probably ask a neighbor or a good friend and find out very directly what we've done, because in the 30 years that Caritas has been here in Austin, we've grown to where we are serving approximately 16,000 unduplicated clients a year. The services that we offer actually reach about 55,000 people a year when you consider family members that are involved. And we are doing today much of what we did in the very beginning, and that is assisting individuals in our community in Travis County who have basic emergency needs or emergency needs of a basic nature, particularly assistance with food, clothing, who may need help paying rent, who may find that their utility bills cannot be paid. And they come to Caritas often through churches, often through other agencies in the community, sometimes through referrals even from the employers, and determine how we might be able to help them, particularly help them stabilize themselves economically. Many of the individuals are working. What they need is a one-time helping hand to maintain the self-sufficiency that they've had. That's our primary purpose, and that's what we do best. Okay,
so you help thousands of folks a year. You do this on an emergency basis by and large. It's distinguished, however, as I understand it, from what like the Salvation Army does with people.
Yes, Salvation Army, I think, provides a really critical service in this community in that they provide shelter and, to some extent, meals for individuals and now for families. And I cannot tell you in this housing market how important a service that is to the Austin community. And Caritas works and coordinates very closely with the Salvation Army because we often have individuals coming to us who are homeless and that need some type of transitional housing. However, what we do and what we focus on is really helping people maintain the homes and the housing that they have, particularly a lot of individuals who are working, but who, even in an excellent economy like we have now, find themselves perhaps working at minimum wage, find that the salary that they bring home, especially as prices of housing and utilities escalate, the money that they bring in just covers their bills. And all it takes is one unexpected emergency, perhaps the automobile, the car breaks down, and families often find themselves making decisions of, do I get the car fixed and continue working, or do I pay my rent?
Yeah,
and that's where we step in.
I think I've heard, and probably has been kind of general currency, that so many folks in our society today are just one or two paychecks away from being homeless.
Yes, and that's not just people who are on minimum wage. I think that our society now finds itself marketing a lot very successfully, And sometimes even very wealthy families find themselves living from paycheck to paycheck. I will say that Caritas, though, primarily works with individuals who are at or below 150% of the poverty guidelines. And one of the reasons that we do that is that our resources are very, very limited, and as are the resources of a number of the faith communities and churches with whom we work. And it's important for us to use those resources in places that we feel we can make, that they're most needed and we can make the most impact. So we do have guidelines for that, for helping.
Okay, well, we'll come back to some of those guidelines in just a moment. But in the meantime, Kim, I'd like to have you share with us the experience that you've had of Caritas and the difference that's made in your life. What did they do for you to begin with?
Well, I used to be independent, you know, self-sufficient. I became pregnant. I was living in a controlling, emotionally abusive household with my boyfriend. I couldn't take it any longer, and I really had no money, no place to go. I had no direction at all. And through work, I tapped into Caritas and started talking with them, and they sort of started pushing me into a direction, a positive direction, you know. Daycare, helping me with daycare, helping me with gas, with diapers, whatever I needed, just so I could start getting on my feet again. And it was a godsend, because I'm so much happier now, so is my daughter. And I think I'm going to be a success story. I'm on the road to, you know, becoming a success story. And they're just a godsend.
Okay, so you're really grateful for what they've done for
Extremely.
you. Yeah.
Extremely.
And you found out about the service through your employer? And so it was not a case of needing to come to them in terms of being without housing. You had some housing to begin with and had support for yourself otherwise, but you needed extra support. Okay, well, I think that relates to what you were saying earlier, that you're taking folks who are find themselves in a situation where they may not be out on the street, but they're desperate in one way or another, and that you tend to focus more on families than you do on individuals. Would that be a
Well,
fair
what we usually find is that in serving an individual, we wind up serving a family. And in this case, it's Kim and her daughter, Chloe. And indeed, we do have individuals that come to us, but primarily it is families extended in one way or another. If I could, the service that we're able to offer Kim is through what we call our case-managed programming, and that's a little bit different from our emergency assistance in that we are able to work with the individual or the family for a prolonged period of time. In our emergency services, as I mentioned, we'll work with about 16,000 clients a year. In our case-managed services, we will work with maybe 150 to 200 families a year, so it's a much smaller group of people.
Case management sounds very
clinical, doesn't it? It sounds really clinical.
I mean,
Actually,
what does it
it's
mean?
very personal. Why don't you talk about what case management is?
It is. You meet every week, and my caseworker, Barbara, she's wonderful. She sits down, talks to me, you know, sort of gives me counseling, gives me direction, keeps me goal-oriented, because it can get kind of confusing, you know, when you're destitute and not really sure where to turn. And as time has gone on, since I am accomplishing my goals, I see her about every other week, and we call every week and keep in touch. She just wants to make sure everything's going fine and I keep on track and have a positive outlook on things.
Okay, so if we take case management, then it's kind of an ongoing counseling support.
Extended counseling might be a good way of describing that.
So that it's not emergency, but it's an ongoing way of keeping in touch and keeping a process going.
The emergency aspect of that, though, comes in, I think, in how an individual comes into the program. We have two ways, or two case-managed programs, two of these extended counseling programs. One is homelessness prevention, and the other is homeless self-sufficiency. We often can identify individuals who are currently in a home, but we know are really on the brink of losing that home. And what we want to do, again, is stabilize that situation. And our homeless prevention program does that. And by identifying those families and by giving them this extended counseling and assistance in a much broader aspect, we know that we can really, after several months of this, be assured that this family is going to be able to take care of themselves. Our homeless self-sufficiency program takes people that often are on the street. A lot of those are individuals, and it's really difficult, but the whole goal is to move them from a really, as you said, destitute, perhaps street-oriented life into a life situation where they are taking care of themselves. And that takes a long time. You don't do that, you know, with one-time rent payment, with one-time utility payment.
Right.
You do it by having an ongoing relationship between that counselor and the individual.
We're coming up on a break here in a minute or two, but I'd like to have the number of your organization put up on the monitor so that folks can begin to focus on the way they can be in touch with you, either in terms of seeing if they could avail themselves of your service or if they could be of help to you in that service. And I guess, Eileen, you've not been in Austin for too long. When did you come?
I came here 18 months ago, but it is always important to me to let the community know I am a native Texan, that I had spent 17 years in Shreveport, Louisiana, and worked in social services there, but did come back in March of '94 and came back to take the position with Caritas.
I see. What were you doing in Shreveport?
I was with YWCA. I was executive director there and providing many social services and counseling, many of the same types of services, but not as oriented toward the homelessness prevention as Caritas is. And I always tell the story of responding to the position that was in the newspaper here, not knowing what the organization was. It was a blind ad, and receiving my first letter from Caritas and standing in my living room holding the piece of paper that had the name Caritas on it and going, this is it.
Really?
You know, I could tell from the name, I could tell from the way the letter was worded that this was the kind of organization I could really commit myself to.
You had almost, sounds like a religious experience there.
I would count it as that. I would count it as that. So. And I've not been disappointed. Not at all.
Yeah.
So.
Kim, you were telling me before the show that you've been in Austin. Your family's been in here around for some time.
Fifth generation.
Fifth generation. And so if you grew up in Austin, you've seen a lot of change here. And
oh, yeah.
And one of the things that I've really, I've wondered about, I've been here since '86, and I've seen a lot of change just in the last 9 years. And even though you were saying it's gotten better off, I mean, we were in the oil bust back in the mid-'80s, and now we're in another boom cycle, still the need doesn't seem to have gone away.
Right.
How do you see that need has gotten, having gotten more rather than less?
It's gotten more. I've noticed a lot more homeless people around on the streets, all on the outskirts of, the inner city, out in Oak Hill, all over the place. It's, I think it's gotten worse.
Is there any statistics to back up that observation?
There certainly is, as far as the number of homeless, the number of individuals who are on the street. But I think, again, one of the things that happens is, even though the economy as a whole rises, so does the cost of living. And probably one of the most dramatic indexes is the cost of housing. And we find that people either cannot afford to get in housing, or landlords don't need to work with individuals who are behind in their rent, so they get evicted easily. And it becomes really difficult to maintain even a basic stable life in a city that has a very dramatically increasing economy.
It's not cheap to live here.
No, it's not.
And that has gone up at the same time that there have been other opportunities that have increased.
And interestingly enough, word gets out that it is a good place, that it's a good job market, and people will often leave jobs and come here without them. And you have to have a good education to make a living here in Austin. And it's harder to find work than what people imagine when they come.
And people come here maybe who are out of work or out of a home, thinking that this is going to be a warm place in more ways than one, and it turns out to not be so welcoming in many ways.
And I remember very distinctly a family that came from Arkansas, a single father and 5 children. and sleeping in their automobiles. I mean, they came to our doorstep going, you know, I'm here, I heard it was a good place to find work, had lost my job in Arkansas, need a, you know, 5 children, I need a place to live, and we had no place to send this man. I mean, he did not have a dollar to get into home, and sleeping in the car with 5 children, if you can imagine. I
want you to just hold the rest of that story for a moment. We're at a point in our program where we have to take a pause, so you folks stay with us. We'll be right back on Austin Faith Dialogue.
Serving Austin means serving you. That has always been the primary goal of Austin Metropolitan Ministries. We are religion in action through the work of these organizations. Each plays a key role in making the capital city a better place to live, but we can't do it alone. Do you have some spare time, talents, or any resources that you can share? If you do, please call AMM at 472-7627, because serving Austin means serving you.
Welcome back to this edition of Austin Faith Dialogue, where our focus is on Caritas, a social service provider that is made available through the interfaith community. We have with us Eileen Oldag, who is the executive director. We also have Kim Mueller, who has been a client with Caritas. And as we come back, I would like to just offer you a few perceptions, if I might. Having served downtown church here for a number of years, I was finding that Caritas was the place that we would provide funding so that we weren't having to make decisions on an individual basis as to who is most in need or even not in need in some instances. So as a referral from the churches, I know that's been part of your working relationship with the interfaith community, as well as receiving support across the community. I know you had a fairly large fundraiser recently that Barbara Jordan spoke at.
We honored her. We went out on the wire service. We are so proud that this particular honor to Barbara Jordan and the particular event itself was carried in newspapers throughout Texas and throughout the United States. So it was a very significant event for us in many ways.
Well, now, what was significant, other than who your speaker was well known?
It is just because the monies that we raise, and this year was one of the most successful that we've had in the 4 years that we've done this, is already budgeted and goes into providing these services that we've been talking about. This year, out of the $100,000 gross, which is about $80,000 that we will net off of this fundraiser, $67,000 of that is for our social services, and those are the services that we've been talking about today. And the reason that we have earmarked such a large percentage of that for our social services is that we have every reason to anticipate that this coming year there is going to be a greater demand for our services than ever. And we base that on two things. One is that with national welfare reform developing, channeling the way it is, we truly expect that over the next 6 to 18 months, we will see more people than ever on our doorstep.
Okay, so what's going on in Washington, D.C. in terms of putting welfare back to the states means that there's going to be a greater need?
Yes. Every time there's no reason to expect anything that except during this transition that there are going to be individuals who fall through the cracks of governmental assistance, and that some are going to lose governmental assistance for whatever reason. Some may be very intentionally and with a great deal of support actually move into the workforce. But if we are talking about reducing AFDC, reducing school lunch programs, what we know is that families are going to wind up taking the brunt of that change, and many of them, at least for a short period of time, if not for a sustained period of time, are going to need assistance from us. So, good, bad, or ugly, regardless of how you view the need for that reform, we anticipate that it's going to happen, and we need to be prepared for it.
Okay, so you're anticipating the fact that you're going to have more need for your services rather than less.
And the other being, as we have said and said again, that with the economy the way it is here in Austin, we really see that the local housing market is going to continue to be very tight and is going to put an incredible demand on our local community, and that we need to be prepared to help.
Okay. I'd like to, Kim, just before it escapes me, you've been a recipient of the help from Caritas. Have you been in a position now to help others because of that? I mean,
no, but I'm looking really forward to doing that.
What way might you do that?
Volunteering, donating a lot of my baby's clothes, actually, to, you know, people that need it. I do want to do things to help the community, though, because, I mean, I just don't know how I could have done it without Caritas, and I think I should give some back. I think everybody should, actually.
But now, have you been able to refer others that you've known?
I've talked to a few people about it, and I'm not sure if they've followed through with it, but I definitely spread the word.
Yeah, I mean, that in itself is part of the network that you all depend on to get the word out about your services, and that you don't know yet whether that's actually people have come, but at least you're working at that.
And I can almost guarantee you that someone will. I mean, what Caritas, particularly through the program that Kim's in, is really counting on is that we make a lasting difference in her life. And the fact that we can do that means that 2 years from now and 5 years from now and 10 years from now, we have someone in the community giving testimony to what we do. And being able to refer as she interfaces and meets other people that have the same needs or maybe distinctly different needs, but could use our services at the same level. So we're counting on her.
We're coming up rather quickly on the Christmas season here in 1995, and let's talk about the difference of your services during this particular time of year.
Well, we get many calls asking to adopt families during Christmas season, and I will be very honest, what we determined many years before I came is that the most successful way for us to do that is really in conjunction with the Christmas Bureau here, which is set up and operates with many of the social service agencies. So Caritas does not try to match up individuals during the Christmas season to work directly with clients. We would probably have to take on a full-time employee just to do that, which, to the credit of this community, means that there are myriad people in Austin, in Travis County, who want to help directly. I hope that will carry on during the Christmas season and even beyond. The way that Caritas can most use the resources of this community is in directly volunteering on, if possible, an ongoing basis, but even on a project basis. And we can use volunteers at Christmas and throughout the year. In our soup kitchen, we serve 200 to 300 people a day, each weekday at lunch. And we always need help in preparing those foods, in serving those foods. We can use help in our social services. We are incredibly understaffed for the demand that we have and for the number of people that we see. And I am always amazed at the individuals who can give time during the week, and our services are open from 8:30 to 5, staffing the desk, answering the telephone. We have some individuals that actually work with clients, determining if they can, if they qualify for transportation or food assistance. And again, that's ongoing. Financial resources are the key to what we do. When people come in and need their rent paid, we can't send a volunteer to do that. We have to send money. So definitely anyone who can contribute contribute financially, contribute money, so that we are indeed able to help with utilities, with rent payments, sometimes with clothing vouchers. That means a lot.
Let's, just while we're kind of in the heart of this way people can respond, let's have that number again on the monitor of where people can call. But let me ask you, too, do you get any help from the city or the county?
We do. As a matter of fact, the program that Kim's talking about is sponsored by grant money. Our homeless prevention program is some federal money that comes through the county, but we also get city money for our homeless self-sufficiency program. And it's really important for us to have that. For so many years, Caritas strictly offered the emergency assistance. And one of the things that I think keeps it a viable agency, a viable organization in this community, has been the fact that we have identified the changing needs of the community and identified changing ways of meeting those needs. And our case managed services is an extension. It's a different way of us offering services, but it's a really important way for us to do that. And we've also gone out and developed other resources for doing that.
Okay.
I would like to say,
Okay.
primary, though, is our work with the faith congregations and the
Okay.
faith communities.
It was Father McCabe who
Yes.
was your founding father of this organization. Give us a little bit of a quick summary of
A
that.
priest with a social work degree. And I think that's an important combination. That means that he definitely came out of that Judeo-Christian heritage that says that community and acts of faith are important. He also had the educational background and the contemporary social education that said this is the way that we can best serve. From the very get-go, I think he made an important decision, and that was that he went out to congregations outside the Catholic Church, St. David's Episcopal Church being one, and asked for
you're
assistance.
housed there, aren't you?
We
Right.
have been in the Fontaine House for 31 years now. St. David's has made that space available, also supports us financially, does that directly through the congregation, but also through their outreach, Fellowship of the Good Samaritans. We have much the same relationship with St. Vincent de Paul societies. We have a number of Methodist churches that support us on a monthly basis. We get contributions from them. Have a number of congregations that will do that annually. And they do it for the very reason that you mentioned in the first half of the program. What Caritas is able to do with the churches is provide an assessment of need. And again, when resources are limited, we have to be able to use those in the most critical
You hate to use the word
place.
screening, but that's in effect what has to happen in terms of making some judgments.
Well, and we do make judgments in terms of can we provide money, but that assessment is what type of services can we provide?
Sorry.
Excuse me, because if it's not money that we give the individual, there are still other things that we give.
One minute left here. What's your daughter's name?
Chloe.
Kim, I think this Christmas with Chloe could be a very special one, it sounds
Oh,
like.
yes, I can't wait. I'm so excited.
And one final word to people that you'd like to say about the importance of Caritas and how'd you like to have them respond?
Caritas,
Just in one word, what one word comes to mind?
Caritas. If you need help, Caritas is there.
Okay. If you need help, Caritas is there. We are here for just a few seconds, but I want to thank you in that meantime, Kim, Eileen, for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks, for looking in. Be with us next week on our next edition of Austin Faith Dialogue. And peace be with you.